What is going on, everybody? It is time for the NFL Deeper Dive here over at Stokastic. We are sponsored today by No House Advantage. I'm excited for today because Neil and I talked a lot of football last year. We did a whole bunch of football shows together, especially our Saturday show. We broke down tournaments together. But Neil was away a little bit last week. We didn't really get to chop it up talking about football. We're back together today. We're going to be back together this weekend. So, Neil, we've got us back together. So I'm excited about that. We get to do our football talks. If you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel as we come in. Neil, how's the start of football season going for you?
Losing a lot of money so far, Greg, but I'm happy to be here with you. Hopefully we can turn it around. This is a fun week for me. I always love week 2 in particular because it is the week of overreaction. Like, we've seen one game from every team and everybody's like, this guy has 70%, not 70%. This guy has 40% usage. He's going to have 40% usage all year. Like, people just majorly overreact to literally everything that happened in week 1. And you can just kind of take advantage of that by sticking to what you thought going into the season, or at least, you want to learn from week 1, but I think that people overreact so you can kind of retain some of what you thought going into the season. And of course, I'm happy to be talking football with you again. Yeah, it's been way too long. We talked so much football last year, and this is our first football show together. So looking forward to talking more.
You know, it's one thing that's kind of funny about the season, and it's gonna be relevant for today because we've got Chargers and the Chiefs playing. So obviously, Patrick Mahomes is, it did seem like in general people were kind of down on Patrick Mahomes coming into the season. Some of it, I guess, because Tyreek Hill wasn't there, and then who knows, maybe part of it also because he was injured at parts last year. But I did see some pretty crazy takes, particularly when it comes to like best ball about Patrick Mahomes. And I almost feel like it went under the radar that the Chiefs put up 44 points in the first week of the season and that the offense just kind of crushed. So I think one thing you say, like, don't overreact to the first start of the season, but I think it was kind of y'all don't forget, Patrick Mahomes is really damn good. And we have a single game slate to talk about him today.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited to talk about it. Patrick Mahomes did say going into the year that we can't count on any one receiver week to week. Like, he's going to be spreading the ball around. I don't know if that's true. I mean, it's what he said. We'll see if it's true. So that's something to keep in mind as we are building out these lineups for this Chiefs game. But yeah, the Chiefs offense, still good. Who knew?
Yeah, and it's funny because you say who knew, but it did seem like people were maybe a little bit lower on Kansas City than they should have been coming into the season. But I think that's where we should start, is with Patrick Mahomes. He's coming off that crazy good opening to the season. And, it's kind of funny also just talking in general about MVP. It's kind of hard for me to see somebody who isn't Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen winning MVP at this point. I know it's only week 1, injuries could happen and whatnot, but I do think they're just so far and above the best QBs that we have going right now. But for today, Patrick Mahomes. We'll talk about him on DraftKings and FanDuel. We'll kind of start with DK. Then we'll talk about FanDuel right after, going individually by some of these Chiefs players, position by position. But when it comes to Mahomes, is he your favorite player to spend up for on this slate as far as DK goes at 11,800?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of has to be. Like, we'll talk a lot about plays that are going to be under-owned today. But as I wrote an article today for today's slate, and I wanted to point out that you need to play about 3 guys who just project well in every lineup, at least 3 in every lineup, and then you kind of get different with the other 3. And Mahomes is just the likeliest to put up a big score of anybody. He is in the utility spot, according to the Stokastic simulations. He is in the optimal lineup in the utility spot 61% of the time, and also in the captain spot 11.1% of the time. He's the top play on the day. He has the best odds of being in the optimal lineup somewhere today, and I don't think that should surprise anybody. If you've been paying attention to the NFL, it shouldn't shock you. As you say, people were down on the Chiefs coming into this year, but yeah, week 1 didn't really surprise me. I think it's going to be more of the same tonight. I'm expecting fireworks, and Patrick Mahomes will certainly be involved. That doesn't mean that I'm going to want to be captaining him much more than the field. I think that 11.1% optimal rate, I'll probably be captaining him somewhere around there. Probably I'll cap it at 20%, maybe try to get a little bit lower. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm high on Patrick Mahomes. He's only $600 more expensive than Justin Herbert, but we have him projected for like 3 points more. I should double check if that is still true. That was true earlier in the day. Yeah, we still got him projected for 3 more points, and he's 600 more expensive. So yeah, Mahomes is the top play of the day for me.
Yeah, I agree, particularly when we look at DraftKings. And you mentioned some of those optimal lineup odds. If you add them together, this is a fancy thing I learned to do, math. You add 2 numbers together. He has the highest chance of being in the optimal lineup of any player on the slate by a really wide margin. Like you said, 11.1% chance for utility, the captain optimal spot, and then 61% about in the utility spot. So overall, a 72% chance that we have Patrick Mahomes projected to be in the optimal lineup on DK. So it makes a whole lot of sense to get to him. And the same goes for FanDuel as well, where we have him also with by far the highest odds of being the highest scoring player. I think a lot of people are going to know if I have the salary space on FanDuel with the way that their salary structures work, where there is no real opportunity cost to playing somebody just from a points perspective in the MVP spot, that's something people are going to want to do. But the question becomes this, because we're starting to see this a lot and it's really hard to project for. But the players that have the highest overall projections over on FanDuel end up being crazy highly owned in the captain spot, to the point where it's kind of hard to build differentiated lineups with somebody like a Patrick Mahomes in. And I know we have him projected for 20% ownership in the captain spot, but we could get to lock and that number could honestly be like 30 to 40% just based on some of the trends that we've seen with the highest scoring MVPs over on FanDuel. So with Mahomes, everybody knows if you're playing cash games, you're playing him. He's the highest projected player. You're putting him in that MVP spot. But are you wary of his ownership as far as FanDuel large field tournament goes in the MVP slot?
Not really. And I like to talk, you're a man of the people, Greg. We got somebody saying touch on FanDuel a little bit, and you do it right away. Just such a man of the people. So I'll touch on FanDuel. Yeah, I think that he's projected for 20% ownership in the captain spot. He's optimal on FanDuel in the captain spot 20.6% of the time. So he's right in line with where he should be. Yeah, I would love to play lower owned guys in the captain. I don't think it would be a wrong decision to just full fade Mahomes in the captain spot and hope that, that 80% outcome happens where somebody else is optimal. But you're not really gaining anything on the field, because the field, we're only projecting him for 20% captain ownership. So I think he's right about where he should be. That's probably where I'm going to be on Mahomes too.
Yeah. So once again, I do think the ownership is probably going to come in higher than the 20%. And one thing with FanDuel, I do like when I play here. So I'm going to say what I like and don't like about the large field tournaments on FanDuel. There is so much ownership and it just goes to the highest projected players, and it's usually warranted, that if those players go up and have a big game, it's really hard to have unique winning lineups. Like you'll see ties of just hundreds upon thousands of people for first place on FanDuel. I was talking about this the other day when I did Live Before Lock with Bujeski. I've had FanDuel slates where I played 150 lineups, come in first place, and lost money because so many people tied for first, which has really made me more cognizant of when I play on FanDuel, trying to differentiate, which is funny then, because then we're talking about on Thursday, and I'm saying that's why I'm going to try to prioritize Jerry Jeudy at the MVP over on FanDuel and captain on DK. I didn't come in first place, but Terry McBride did. He won $190,000. And that's kind of where I think is the optimal way to play some of these FanDuel large field tournaments for showdown slates, is you will just be willing to take chances. And obviously Patrick Mahomes has the best odds of being the highest scoring player on the entire slate, but it's just hard to build a unique lineup with him in the MVP spot. I always get tripped up. So I call it MVP or captain when you go back and forth between the two, but
MVP
multiplier spot on FanDuel. Yeah, called the MVP. So he's the best play. If you guys are playing cash games, you're playing Patrick Mahomes in the MVP spot. For tournaments, I'm going to look elsewhere, just because I want, if I end up having the highest scoring lineup, I don't want it to be split with a ton of people. I want it to be a lineup that wins a lot of money and that's going to lose more often than not. But the times it does win, it's going to pay out more significantly. So that's kind of the route that I would be looking to go down when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. So let's talk now. Oh, sorry. Do you have something else you want to add?
I would just add, if you are playing Patrick Mahomes in the MVP spot, you just need to really pay attention to getting different elsewhere. So playing some players who are, getting less than 5% ownership, play some weird guys with Patrick Mahomes if you have him in the MVP spot, and leave a little bit extra salary on the table. Don't just leave $500 on the table. I'd leave at least $2,000 on the table if you're using Patrick Mahomes in that MVP spot.
Yeah, that's a reasonable way to look at it too, because there are, and also that's something else on FanDuel. If I have a somewhat popular MVP play, I'm not using all the salary. Like that lineup is guaranteed to be duped, unless you have some like crazy 1% owned punt play or something like that. Beyond that, you're going to be playing a duped lineup. So I agree with what you said there. If you are committed to being like, I want Patrick Mahomes to be my MVP, do leave a lot of salary on the table. That's one way you could differentiate the lineup. We have a super chat here from Goody. He says, I feel like 3v3 is going to be popular. So, okay, he's talking about his build. So three Chiefs, 3 Chargers, leaning a 5-1 or a 4-2 build, Chiefs side to differentiate, GPP DK, what say you? So have you built lineups yet for this slate, Neil?
I have not built my lineups for this slate yet. I guess I did. I ran Crunch while I was just doing my videos earlier,
Okay.
and I'm looking at my just the top projected lineups, or I guess the first lineups that came out. The first one is a 3-3. The second one's a 4-2 Chief stack. The third one is 3-3. The fourth one is a 4-2 Chief stack. The sixth one is a 4-2 Charger stack. I don't really pay it. The seventh one is a 5-1 Charger stack. I don't pay a ton of attention to these constructions. I do think you can typically find edge on these kind of slates by doing 5-1 stacks, but it's just not a focus of mine. I'm going to get plenty of every kind of different construction. So I'm more concerned about the players than the makeup of the different teams in my lineups.
Yeah, so let me pull up the set of lineups I ran right before we started, and I'll just say what ended up coming up given some of the settings I have and things I put in, in terms of maximum salary used and whatnot, what the most common team stacks were. I have a feeling it's probably going to be 3-3 just over the course of a bunch of lineups. That's what comes up most often. Yeah. So of the lineups I made, about 65% of them were 3-3 stacks. So I do think that you don't have to focus too much on whether you're playing, 3 Chiefs, 3 Chargers. Like Neil said before, it matters less than what I think a lot of people think it does. Where I do think you could get kind of creative is in a game that maybe has like a 7-point spread, which, a team is expected to win, but not by some crazy blowout margin. Maybe make a 5-1 stack of the other team in that kind of scenario and prioritize that. We're going onslaught stack the other way. And maybe that's something that's going to be lower owned versus the field. For this particular slate, though, I think like 3-3 is fine. And I don't really think there's any one particular build that's optimal.
Yep. Totally same page there. If you want to, I think that it is a reasonable thing to do. If you want to build a 5-1 stack, I think that is going to be somewhat unique. It's not going to be, if you're still using full salary and not playing low owned guys, it's probably not going to be that unique, but I think that it is one of the lower owned constructions in these tournaments typically. So I'm cool with a 5-1 stack if this is what you want to do.
Shout out to the news guy, El Negro Loco, just gifted out 10 YouTube subscriptions. So
you know what's hurtful, Greg?
What?
Loco has never gifted me a subscription.
Oh,
everybody else in chat. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
We'll have to bring it up with him. It's probably, maybe he probably just hates plaid.
That might be it. Loco doesn't like plaid. I also sometimes I send messages to the support channel. He doesn't like that I go through the support channels instead of just messaging him directly.
Yeah, it could be. It's probably something. I'm sure he's upset with you about something. We'll figure it out.
That must be it.
He'll probably post in here in a second. Let's see. Nothing yet. Hey, look. We got, and more of them coming in. Our guy, Jorge Giacomi, he gifted out 50 YouTube subscriptions. This really feels like him trying to one up the news god here. He's like, hey,
we got
news
Oprah
god,
going on here.
You think you could give subscriptions and not me? Well, here we go. We got a bunch of people getting subscriptions. So yeah. Thank you very much, Jorge. That's also really appreciated.
That is great.
Yeah, play Jorge in the MVP spot today.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, thank you very much, News God Jorge. We appreciate both of you guys. That's very cool to see. And then I know some people asked the other day how to activate the YouTube subscription, and I'm not exactly sure, but I know that there is directions that Jordan. Do you know how they activate it? How do they make their name green?
Like, how do they pay for it?
No, how do they make their name green?
If you want to make your name green, you just become a member if you're not already.
No. But if they get gifted the membership, it just happens automatically.
Yeah, it just happens automatically. But you have to turn gifted on. So if you want to accept gifted memberships, you have to turn that on. If you see it in the chat, you can allow it. So there that is.
All right. So if you guys don't have gifts turn on, you have to do that for a chance to activate there. But also, our guy Malakar, he also gifted out a YouTube subscription there. So it's like Christmas here in the chat with everybody giving away free stuff. So since other people are giving away free stuff, I guess we might as well give away some free stuff as well. Because if you are new to Stokastic and haven't used our NFL DFS tools yet, right now you get a test run before making any kind of purchases. If you click on the link that we have below, or Jordan will throw it into chat, and you go sign up, you get 3 free days of a Stokastic NFL. So everything that you want to build NFL DFS winning lineups We've got projections for Thursday Night Football. We're going to have all our projections and ownership projections for, of course, the main slate on Sunday. So if you were to sign up right now, you get 3 days for free, and you can take advantage of Thursday Night Football as well as the main slate over on Sunday. So everybody giving away some free stuff right now. But let's talk about the running back situation for the Kansas City Chiefs tonight, Neil. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I feel like his game that he played on Sunday was maybe a little bit overrated from a standpoint of he only got 10 touches. He scored 2 touchdowns, so it looks like a great fantasy game. I'm a little wary of what his workload is going to look like this year, just because we've seen in the past where the Chiefs have run a rotation of running backs. It's typically not one guy is the workhorse. So how do you view Clyde Edwards-Helaire when he's picking up quite a bit of ownership tonight?
Yeah, so Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 27 snaps last week. Jerick McKinnon had 27 snaps last week. Isaiah Pacheco had 16 snaps last week. Now, Pacheco was mostly in garbage time. I think CEH is still the guy. Like he's the main guy, but I do think that it is a little bit of a committee here. Maybe I'm just speaking it into existence because that's what I want based on best ball. I was not really in on CEH. I was very much in on Pacheco, and then when he got steamed, then I was in on McKinnon. So maybe I'm just thinking about what I actually want, but honestly, 27 snaps, that's just not going to do it for Clyde Edwards-Helaire when he is at this price tag. He is one of the guys that I listed as a guy that you, among my stud players, guys that you can pay up for today. I still think that he is the number 1 running back for Kansas City. I just think that it is fragile. So I'm going to be playing some CEH for sure. I'm just not going to be jamming him in like he is the workhorse back, because I don't think he is. I think that he will be splitting at least somewhat with McKinnon and Pacheco today.
Yeah, so it is worth noting that he didn't play in garbage time because the game was fairly one-sided, but I do think this is largely going to be a timeshare between CEH and Jerick McKinnon. And here's what we currently have in terms of projections for these guys on DraftKings. And then once again, we'll talk about FanDuel in a second and these guys. But CEH is projected right now for, he's projected for mid 20% utility ownership over on DK, whereas we have Jerick McKinnon projected for about half the amount of ownership, where he's only at 2,600. Like, obviously, CH should have a higher baseline projection, but I like McKinnon as a pivot play off of CH because I do think Helaire is going to be fairly popular. McKinnon doesn't look like he's going to pick up all that much ownership. And obviously, if McKinnon plays well, the production is going to come from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So that's a pivot I like in large field tournaments.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of McKinnon tonight. What do we have at his ownership at right now? I wonder if that has changed since I was looking at it earlier.
14%. Let me refresh to see if anything's changed. But it was 14% last I looked.
Yep, we've got him. So I see 14.6% in the utility spot with a 16.1% chance of being optimal there. And then 2.3% captain ownership, 2.7% optimal. I kind of like that. McKinnon's just really sneaky at 2,600, 3,900 in the captain spot. He's a player that doesn't really need that many touches to put up a big score because he can receive. He could score a touchdown. So at that price tag, I wouldn't be surprised to see McKinnon sneak into the optimal lineup tonight and potentially even in the captain spot. So yeah, McKinnon is a guy that I'm really, really going to like tonight.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider too about this game is Chiefs Chargers. There's a lot of weapons, right? There's a lot of guys to pay up for. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, and then of course Justin Herbert on the other side. We need to find salary savings somewhere, and there's not that many cheap guys to feel great about. And just getting a low on one in McKinnon, who I could, squint my eyes and see a path to upside for, I think that's a good, viable way to save salary. So that's where he fits in for me today. But do you see a whole lot of value plays, like just kind of in general about this slate? Are there any value plays that you really, really do like gravitating towards?
I would say McKinnon of the true value plays is one of my favorites. Obviously, Trey Mckitty, we'll talk about later, projects really well. Justin Watson projects fairly well. There actually are a lot of guys that I'm kind of interested in. Nobody that I'm going to be like 40% on, probably not even 30% on among guys under 3,000. McKinnon would be the most likely, I guess, to get to around 30%. But most of these guys under 2,000, I'm probably going to try to get above the field, but there's no like slam dunk plays for me. Is there anybody that you really love among value plays?
No, and that was kind of my point that I was trying to make about McKinnon is that there aren't cheap guys that I'm looking as like, oh, this is the guy. And I'm also going back to this because we have a super chat from Sam Pierce who said, any players you love under 2,000, and love is a difficult word. I don't love many things, but I kind of want to extend it to 2,600 and say Jerick McKinnon. But if I have to go under 2,000, I mean, it's just hard to find a guy that I really, really like playing sub 2K. The player that projects out the best for us is Trey Mckitty, but I think that's more just a thing where he's only $400. And if a bunch of the high end guys go off, you're just going to need a punt play somewhere. And that's kind of where he falls in. So the one that does project the best for us is Mckitty. But if I'm being, reasonable and trying to go a little bit up in salary relative to ownership and everything, McKinnon is my answer. But is there anybody sub 2K on DK that you do really like getting to answer Sam's question?
I think my favorite would be Sky Moore. He did not see a lot of opportunities last week. He might not have many opportunities in this game, but we have him currently at sub 5% projected ownership, and he's just a playmaker. Like, I think he's a guy that he doesn't need more than a couple touches to potentially pay off this $1,800 price tag. So I do have some interest in Sky Moore, who is 1,800. Josh Kelly projects pretty well for us at 1,600 for that price tag. I mean, if he falls into the end zone, he's probably good enough. Trey Mckitty is currently only projected for 11.4% ownership. I thought that might come up. It still might come up just because he has a pretty good projection for 400. So I could see him getting steamed just by people using optimizers. I also don't mind playing. I mentioned in my article, you could play Noah Gray or Jody Forston. Both it's Fortson. This whole time I thought it was Forston. It's Fortson. Everybody else is getting it right. So I think you could play either Noah Gray or Jody Fortson. I think they should have some opportunity. I would say that largely covers the sub 2K guys that I like.
We've got another super chat here from Avi Schreier. He says, can you really quickly name your top 3 to 5 plays from the game tonight for the Thursday to Monday slate on FanDuel? All right. Well, I just answered this question. I ran a crunch for you. I would say this: if you're committed to playing 5 players from this game in your Thursday to Monday slate, I kind of think you're doing it wrong. Like, I don't think you should just load up on the third. By the way, I don't play the Thursday to Monday slates all that often. I think the biggest leverage to be had in them is actually just avoiding the Thursday game, because most people play that contest to play the Thursday players, and I feel they usually go over-owned. But I ran a crunch, and let's see who I ended up getting the most of from this game. So of the players in this game, the ones I got to the most were Patrick Mahomes, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, and Travis Kelsey. Nobody else really popped up all that meaningfully. So Mike Williams and Josh Palmer, that is going to be a result of there being no Keenan Allen in the mix. Patrick Mahomes is a result of him being Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelsey is a result of him being Travis Kelsey. So I think from just a value perspective, Mike Williams and Josh Palmer are the 2 best value plays in the game. And then as far as pay-ups go, Mahomes and Palmer, Mahomes and Kelsey there.
I do want to echo what you said about people really do play these Thursday through Monday slates just because they want to have somebody to cheer for. So they do. I think these guys probably do go over-owned, but in this kind of game, it's also, I mean, it's obviously a dangerous game. It's not like we have a Jets game here where nobody's going to score. So it's it'd be a little bit scary to fade this game, but I think that might be the sharpest thing you could do.
Yeah, no, that's like when I play the Thursday to Monday contest, it's usually just to fade those players, but I don't play them all that frequently. It's something that just doesn't really occur to me a lot. I mean, every once in a while, so it's like, I think there could be edge here. I'll enter these contests, but yeah, not something that I do play regularly. But Abby, those are the players that when I ran a crunch came up most frequently for me. Let's talk about the running backs now from a FanDuel perspective, because I do think it looks a little bit different if we're looking at these guys across the 2 different sites, because CEH at 12,000, but Jerick McKinnon down at 6,500. There aren't that many guys to like on FanDuel at all for this really cheap price point. And McKinnon is the one that pops up most meaningfully for us in our projections in terms of the best chance to be optimal of any player priced below 7,000. So I do like McKinnon quite a bit on FanDuel as well relative to his salary and ownership.
Yeah, I like McKinnon on FanDuel as well. We didn't talk about Isaiah Pacheco. I just want to say that I do have some interest in Isaiah Pacheco just as a guy that is going to get virtually no ownership. And I think it makes sense. I think that, the touches he got last week for the most part were in garbage time. So I get why people don't want to play Isaiah Pacheco. They're not just game log watching. They're actually paying attention to when it happened. But I think at 4,400, given his great offseason, given his pretty solid week one, even if it wasn't garbage time, he was looking good. I could see him getting a little bit more opportunity than most people expect. So I am going to be playing some Isaiah Pacheco, even at 4,400. I could see him, getting, if he puts up what he did last week, there's a decent chance, maybe I don't know if he'd definitely be optimal, but there's a decent chance he'd be optimal at 4,400. So if he's not getting any ownership, I do have some interest in Isaiah Pacheco on DraftKings, on FanDuel. So I think he is, Pacheco is 7,000 on FanDuel. Jerick McKinnon is 6,500. Just makes me like Jerick McKinnon all that much more on FanDuel. So yeah, I think that for me, Isaiah Pacheco is more of a DraftKings play, whereas Jerick McKinnon I can play on both sites.
Yeah, Pacheco projected for a cool 0% chance of being the optimal lineup in our simulations over on FanDuel, which we don't see happen all that often. But real quick now, what do we make of CEH over on FanDuel, who once again does look to be a little bit overowned? And part of the issue too is just where he's at in the price range. Like Mike Williams looks like a better play, or if you're going cheaper, you can get a comparable projection on Juju Smith-Schuster or Marquez Valdes-Scantling for a considerably cheaper price. So CH just looks like somebody I'm not going to be all that high on either site. So hopefully he doesn't score 2 touchdowns again.
Yeah, I think so. I think CEH becomes more interesting if you are leaving salary on the table, because if you specifically at captain, because I think if CEH scores 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, whatever, on the ground, that takes away from scoring for Mahomes or Kelsey, which is what you want if you're leaving salary on the table. So I do think that CEH, although he does not look great in the tools, I think that if I were to play him, I might be even more inclined to play him in the MVP spot on FanDuel. Although, I mean, like I said, I'm not a huge believer in CEH. I don't think that he is the bell cow, but if you want to take that risk, I think it might make sense to do it, leaving salary on the table, putting him in the MVP spot on FanDuel.
Yeah, we got a super chat here from Tab Jones. He's asking, if you were to play a defense, how many players would you play versus that D? So, when you're running your lineups, what rule do you set in Fantasy Cruncher for the max amount of players you allow versus a defense? Also, keep in mind, maybe this isn't the best slate to play defenses.
It would be the maximum number of players that you can play against a defense for me. It's always the maximum. I want to allow Fantasy Cruncher to do its thing. And I know most people hand building are not going to do a Chiefs onslaught with the Chargers defense on the other side or vice versa. It's just a way to get a little bit different, which is, I wouldn't say it's my number one priority. My number one priority is making lineups that actually have a chance to win. But a high priority of mine is creating lineups that not many other people are going to have. And one way to do that is to have just the defense on one side. So it's the maximum that it will allow me to have.
Yeah. And, once again, like weird things could happen. Well, I don't know why I said once again, but it just general type knowledge. Weird shit happens on one game football slates. Third and fourth string tight ends catch touchdowns. Defenses also score touchdowns, special teams touchdowns. And I do think it's pretty restrictive if you're just saying, like, I need to have my QB paired with 2 pass catchers. I need to have my defense with, only 1 player against them. So it's just another spot in the roster. I would just view it as another player for Showdown. It's way different than it is for a full slate. So I would be okay with, like Neil said, just allowing as many as possible. Let's talk about some of these pass catchers now for the Chiefs, and we'll just group them all in together. So, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelsey. Who are you prioritizing the most of this group on DK?
The most of this group. That's interesting. Maybe MVS. We've got him lower owned than Juju, and he's 1,600 cheaper. I like Juju as well. It's kind of hard to differentiate these guys because they're getting pretty similar ownership. Let me pull up our DraftKings tool just to see that I'm not.
Yeah, I'll read it off, by the way.
Yeah.
So we've got right now Marquez Valdes-Scantling projected for 26% ownership, Juju a little bit higher at 30%, and Kelsey obviously being the most popular at 41% on DK. Now, what's interesting about these three is they're also all in pretty distinct price ranges. Kelsey, 11K, Juju, 8K, MVS, 6,400. So there's a big price gap between them. And in terms of ownership, like we don't have any of them being crazy highly overowned. Of the leverage tool that we have on all these, the one that's going the most underowned is MVS. He looks like the best tournament play, the guy that I'd want to be most overweight to. But I don't have an issue with the ownership going to Juju or Kelsey right now. I think that they are both perfectly fine plays. But relative to ownership, I do think that Valdes-Scantling is the best tournament option. And he's just historically been a really boom bust type guy. He makes big plays. He drops a bunch of passes. So that was at least his role when he was with Green Bay. Probably won't be all that dissimilar now that he's in Kansas City. So I view him as one of the more boom bust plays on the slate, which is kind of perfect for one game showdown tournaments.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love MVS for these types of games. He looks phenomenal, as you said, in the tools, coming in 8.1% optimal in the captain spot. He is just cheap enough that he allows you to play a lot of other high-end plays. I'm interested in MVS. He is probably my top option for the Chiefs.
And then when we talk about these guys over on FanDuel, I don't really think all that much changes. Travis Kelsey, 14,000. Juju Smith-Schuster, 11,000. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 10,000. Actually, what's funny is if you do look at our leverage tool over on FanDuel, all three of these guys come up as being a little bit under-owned. So I think that all of the pass catchers here, the main pass catchers for the Chiefs, I think they all look like good plays on FanDuel as well. Like I much prefer paying up for the pass catchers of the Chiefs than paying up for CEH as a running back, which is something else also that just kind of has me off him because I look at the projections for these wideouts / tight end and Travis Kelsey, and just all the pass catchers look better for Kansas City than CEH does as a pay up option in the running game.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. The thing that I like about CEH is that he can score points without Patrick Mahomes scoring points. He still does frequently with Patrick Mahomes, but he at least theoretically can score points on the ground. So there's some merit to play in CEH because you don't really need to pair him as frequently with Mahomes. Which, I mean, with that said, you don't always have to pair your pass catchers with your quarterback either. If you play in the quarterback, you probably do want to pair him with at least one pass catcher. But yeah, I like all, and I guess I skipped over Travis Kelsey when we brought up wide out pass catching options. I was just thinking wide receivers, but obviously Travis Kelsey is the likeliest guy to put up a big score tonight. He is the number one pass catcher on the Chiefs. The only thing really not to like about him is the high ownership. He's coming in at 41% in the util spot, 10.7% in the captain spot. Those look pretty neutral in the tools. Those look like, about where he should be owned. And that makes sense to me. Travis Kelsey is just a guy that Patrick Mahomes likes to throw the ball to. He's a talented receiver. So obviously I like Travis Kelsey tonight as well.
Today's show is sponsored by No House Advantage. And if you guys haven't signed up at No House Advantage yet, there's a couple reasons to. First of all, if you click on the link below and you go sign up at No House Advantage, we're going to give you $25 for free. So that's nice. Something to enter some tournaments with. That's one reason. But then the other thing too is they're offering a really big contest to open the year. And there's been some overlay to this point, which is always something to take advantage of. No House Advantage, totally different way to play daily fantasy sports. It's prop-based contest, but it's prop-based in a DFS kind of way where you're building out lineups by selecting different props and you're giving them a point number for how confident you are in that prop. And you're labeling your props on a scale of 1 to 7 or 1 to 10, depending on how big the contest is. If that prop hits, you get that amount of points for it. And we have this really easy to build lineups over at Stokastic.com. We have a lineup generator that's just going to build optimal lineups for you that you could upload right into No House Advantage. So really easy way to take advantage of some of the overlay opportunities they've had. Get your foot in the door also by signing up, clicking on that link below, collecting your $25 when you sign up. Let's move on over to the Chargers side of the game. And when it comes to Justin Herbert, I think the talking point is, well, first, we want to play him in general. I still want to play Patrick Mahomes more than him. But how apt are you to build lineups starting on DraftKings that have both Mahomes and Herbert in them?
Let me just, in my crunch of 500 that I did using approximately the settings I will end up doing, out of 500 lineups, I had 199 that had both of them in it. And that's about the proportion that I would expect to end up getting. And that, I guess that doesn't even, it's probably more if you include both at captain as well. So I'll have plenty of lineups with both. They're the two top projected players on the slate. So I would imagine I'm going to be getting both plenty in my lineups. It's just a matter of what can you do with them to get unique. If you play both quarterbacks, you're probably going to need to get a little bit weird with some of your pass catching options or other options in your lineup.
And here's where it gets hard, though. On FanDuel, it is typically pretty hard to play two stud quarterbacks together because Mahomes, 17,000, Justin Herbert, 15,500. That's where I do find it really difficult to pair both of the quarterbacks together because a couple of things happen. Number one, there's just not that much salary go around. And then also, what has to happen for Mahomes and Herbert both to go off? Well, some of the pass catchers have to have big games also. And that's where it's kind of hard, at least for FanDuel salary restraints, to build lineups that have both quarterbacks in them, especially to what you said before, quarterbacks that are unique. So how do you deal with this slate on FanDuel with Mahomes and Herbert being the two most expensive players by a pretty wide margin? How often are you building lineups with both of them together on FanDuel?
Probably less frequently, because I'm going to be leaving salary on the table too, makes it really tough. I guess the nice thing about leaving salary on the table is if you're playing both Mahomes and Herbert, you're naturally going to have to play some ugly players, some players that are unlikely to put up big scores. I probably will be playing some of both of them together. I'm just going to get weird with other spots in my lineups, play some guys who are not getting a ton of ownership and have pretty low salaries.
All right. So we've got a super chat here from Jorge again. And first off, he says, if we get up to 250 likes, he's going to gift a bunch of more YouTube memberships. So guys, we haven't done it yet. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Jorge, I appreciate that shout out. And then his question, who are your captains you have the eye on from the Chargers, and thoughts on Herbert now not having Keenan Allen? So obviously it's a little bit of a downgrade for him, but it's not something over the course of a projection that's going to be like, oh, now all of a sudden we project Herbert to score, 8 less fantasy points. It's kind of insignificant in the grand scheme of things. So it doesn't really cause me to have massive overreactions to Justin Herbert. But as for his other part of the question, who is your favorite captain option from the Chargers today?
It might be Gerald Everett. I think he looks he looks phenomenal in the boom or the single game tool, coming in at just 6.4% projected ownership in the captain spot, optimal 10.4% of the time there. He's just 4,800, and who knows how many extra looks he might get with Keenan Allen out. But he's a very capable receiver. Would not be that surprising to see. We're all expecting these other receivers to step up. It wouldn't be that surprising to see Gerald Everett as a guy who gets a little bit more action as well. So I think Gerald Everett certainly has to be in that conversation. Josh Palmer is in that conversation. I think that, DeAndre Carter had the better game than Josh Palmer last week, but it's still my expectation that Josh Palmer is the wide receiver 2 tonight. We'll find out soon enough. But if Josh Palmer is not going to be getting a ton of ownership, and he's currently projected for 6.2% in the captain spot, yeah, I'm just going to eat that and play some Josh Palmer in the captain spot as well. How about you?
I like Gerald Everett quite a bit. He was involved in the first game of the season, was targeted 4 times, 54 receiving yards, also scored a touchdown. So he's getting red zone looks. But also, I do think it's getting a little bit overlooked that with Keenan Allen being out, Gerald Everett's also somebody in line for extra work in the passing game, and he's really cheap. There's a lot of guys to spend up for on the slate. I think it's more than reasonable to think that because of the way DraftKings works, like obviously I wouldn't want to play Gerald Everett in the MVP spot on FanDuel, but for DK purposes, yeah, I think he's a pretty good look in the captain spot. Actually, we have him projected with the second best odds to be the optimal captain on this slate. Now, it's not because we haven't projected for the second most fantasy points, but it's because he has a good projection at a cheap price point. And then there's also so many guys to pay up for on the slate that he's landing in the optimal lineup as the captain a lot. So I'm going to side with our simulations here and say Gerald Everett. And I mean, same thing the other day when Matt and I were talking about last Thursday's slate. And for a lot of the same reasons, we like Jerry Jeudy as our favorite captain play, saved us some salary, also gave us leverage off of Cortland Sutton. So Gerald Everett, I think a lot of the same, get some leverage off of what should be a really popular Mike Williams, also save some salary. So I think that's a good place to go to. The next guy that we have to talk about here is going to be Austin Eckler, who, there's weird narratives surrounding Austin Eckler in terms of he was hurt for a lot of last year. And coming into this year, the team has said they want to reduce his workload a little bit. And Eckler said that he sides with that. He thinks it's something he would like to happen this year just to keep himself healthy, not just for the regular season, but when the Chargers are presumably in the playoffs, he's healthy for the postseason as well. So I do think that's going to be something that happens this year, but the question becomes, are they willing to do it in their first game of the season against the Chiefs? But we do have Austin Eckler being very popular today, and he's one of the more negatively leveraged players that we have in the top stacks tool. So how are you going to be approaching Austin Eckler in large field tournaments?
Yeah, I'm going to be playing some Austin Eckler. He is one of those studs that I just think has a chance to really put up a huge score. He is every week. So last week he only saw 33 snaps, but like you said, they're playing the Chiefs this week. I don't think this is the week to get cute and go away from Austin Eckler. I'm going to be playing his backups too, just in case they decide to go that route. But I'm not going to be shying away from playing Austin Eckler. He did carry the ball despite having just 33 snaps last week, just playing 33 snaps. He had 14 carries. He caught 4 passes. I think Austin Eckler is going to be just fine. Even if they do reduce the number of snaps he plays, I think they're going to be using him when he is on the field. So I'm still willing to play Austin Eckler. What do we have his ownership projected at? We have him at 8.4% in the captain spot. That looks way over owned on DraftKings. But at the same time, again, just, I mean, like I said for CEH on FanDuel, the same does apply to Austin Eckler, where you can play Eckler and hope that, they just score points on the ground. You don't have to play Justin Herbert in that case. So I do kind of like Austin Eckler a little bit in the captain spot when you are leaving salary on the table.
And now talking about him from a FanDuel perspective, it's kind of hard for me to justify the salary because he's 14,500. Kelsey's cheaper than him. You've got Justin Herbert just $1,000 more expensive. If we're going to try to prioritize getting exposure to Patrick Mahomes, I just think that Eckler kind of finds himself in no man's land where, right now we have him projected to only be an optimal spot 18% of the time in the utility. And that is actually the lowest of any projected starter in this game. Like there's no other high end. Well, I guess if we take the kickers out of the mix in terms of like the high end skill position players, Eckler has the lowest utility optimal. It's not because we have like Gerald Everett projected for more fantasy points than Eckler over on FanDuel, but it's just because the price point becomes restrictive that I find it hard to really reasonably pay up for Eckler in a whole bunch of lineups on FanDuel.
I agree with you that it's a little bit harder for me on FanDuel where you don't have that salary multiplier, and he's still getting 10.3% ownership in the captain spot. It does make me like him a little bit less on FanDuel than DraftKings, where he's more expensive on FanDuel. He's still getting plenty of ownership. He doesn't get the PPR bonus that he gets for like every dump off pass that he gets on DraftKings. He just gets a half point per reception on FanDuel. So I don't like him as much on FanDuel as DraftKings. I still think he's interesting in that you can play him and not play Herbert, Mahomes, hope that Eckler's doing all the scoring on the ground. So I think there is some merit to go in there, but yeah, he does look like he's going a little bit over-owned. I might be under the field on Eckler in the captain spot on FanDuel.
Shout out to our guy Jorge, who's once again dropping another 50 YouTube memberships in there. So a bunch of more people. We got more green people around here. Everybody's going green. Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Cheers. Got my water bottle here from Costco. I went
That's
to
what
Costco.
I was saying. Cheers to
Costco.
Jorge.
Oh my God. What's better than Costco?
Yeah. Nothing's better than Costco.
Nothing at all. That's everybody's wearing. By the way, you know what's funny? You go to Costco, 80% of the people there are dressed like Neil is dressed right now. And it's just the best place ever. Everybody's wandering around. Everybody's having a great time. I do. By the way, you're washed once you enjoy going to Costco. Because when I was younger, I thought like it was the biggest waste of time going shopping for anything. I just hit a certain age now. I'm like, Costco fucking rules. So that's
I'm older than you, and I have not hit that age. I hate shopping just about anywhere, and that includes Costco. It does not interest me.
Yeah, no, it's the best. They have everything there. Like where else are you gonna? Oh, look, it's starting. They have those. What they have? They have plaid shirts there.
Do they have plaid shirts? Okay, maybe I'm in. Maybe I'm back in.
Yeah. Where else are you going to get plaid shirts, toilets, and protein bars? Like there just aren't that many stores with that kind of diversity.
There's a lot of stuff at Costco, no doubt about that.
You know where you could, and by the way, Costco, it for a very limited amount of money, you go to Costco, you get basically everything. And here's a good way to load up on some money to spend at Costco. BetMGM right now. If you have not signed up yet, you click on the link in the description box below. You place a $10 bet on BetMGM, and they're going to give you $200 for free. Just place a $10 bet on tonight's Chiefs-Chargers game, and you're going to get $200 for free. Technically, it's when either team in the game scores a touchdown, but somebody's going to score a touchdown. This isn't a game that's going to be, like a 3-0 final score. So this is guaranteed. It's going to be a winning bet. $10 into $200. Just sign up by clicking on that link below. And then you take that $200 and you buy the world at Costco, right? You get plaid shirts, you get all the water bottles in the world, and you get like taquitos, right? You get frozen food. You're loading up on Costco, this $200 from BetMGM. This is an offer that, at least as of now, is only expected to last until the end of this week. So take advantage of it now. And why would you not want to take advantage of $200 for free? All right, let's talk about the Chiefs pass catchers. The big story of the game is that there's no Mike Williams for the Chargers. There's no Keenan Allen for the Chargers. Mike Williams now takes over as the number one wide receiver. Where do you see a lot of the targets going? Is there any one particular receiver that stands out the most to you to play in large field tournaments? And we could group Gerald Everett into this as well.
I mean, Mike Williams is the obvious one. Just the guy who's most likely to put up a big score, but because he's the obvious one, he's also going to get the most ownership. So he doesn't stand out from the perspective of you can get different from the field in a large field tournament with Mike Williams. He's just, we should say at the start, yeah, Mike Williams is the wide receiver one now. I would expect him to get the most targets, to have the biggest opportunity to put up a big game. After Mike Williams, we talked about Gerald Everett. I really love Gerald Everett here today. Looks really interesting. not getting a ton of ownership given his expected increased workload without Keenan Allen there. I like Gerald Everett. Josh Palmer, we also touched on, presumably moving into that wide receiver 2 role, still not getting a ton of projected ownership. And I think that's partly because of DeAndre Carter having the bigger game last week. But DeAndre Carter had played many fewer snaps than Josh Palmer last week. And I don't think one game Josh Palmer like played himself out of that wide receiver 2 role. I would still expect him to be the wide receiver 2 role. So for me, I mean, outside of Mike Williams, who is the obvious one, I would say it's probably Gerald Everett, number 1, Josh Palmer, number 2, DeAndre Carter, number 3. And then Trey Mckitty he projects really well for $400 salary. No Donald Parham tonight. So Trey Mckitty being the number 2 tight end. The number 2 tight end for the Chargers gets some looks. So Trey Mckitty is really interesting at 400 and currently doesn't look like he's getting steamed too much. I'm kind of concerned about it because he has that 400 price tag and he projects well for any site doing projections. So people using optimizers might be forcing in a little bit of Trey Mckitty, but currently we don't have him projected for a ton of ownership. So I have some interest there as well. How about you? Anybody else that you want to touch on, or what's your ranking there?
Yeah, so for me, just based on the price and the ownership, Gerald Everett is 1. And then I'm going to go with Mike Williams as my second guy, just because a couple things. Number 1, like I'm already seeing people in the chat mention it. Well, Mike Williams sucked last week. Yeah, but Keenan Allen was there. And I do wonder if people are going to, because you were talking when we opened the show about people overreacting to week 1. I do think this could be a case where people look at Mike Williams like, goose egg last week, didn't do shit, and they just won't want to play him. So I think he's underpriced for this slate without Keenan Allen there, and his ownership is reasonable. We have him project for 34% ownership in the utility spot today. So that's not anything that's too crazy high. I do really like getting to him, and I do think there's a chance that the field sleeps on him a little. Like, obviously, 34% is still some ownership, but I do think the field might sleep on him a little bit just because of what happened last week. So the 2 guys I'm going to gravitate towards the most here are Gerald Everett and Mike Williams, and it's the exact same for FanDuel as well.
Yeah, Mike Williams is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with people overreacting. Mike Williams is a very good receiver, having one bad game. He's 27 years old. I thought before I looked it up this summer, I thought Mike Williams was like 34. I was like, this guy's going to fall off a cliff. Why are people drafting him in best ball? No, he's only 27 years old. He has had injury issues, but when he plays, Mike Williams is a very good football player. I'm not going to let one game lead me away from Mike Williams. I'm going to be playing plenty of Mike Williams tonight.
Yeah, I think that in terms of the pay up guys on the Chargers, he's the number 1 skill position pay up. I'd rather get to Mike Williams than Austin Eckler on both FanDuel and DraftKings because of the pricing.
Yeah, I think.
All right, we got one final super chat. So this is what we're going to answer before we head out. But there's another show after this. We got the NFL Live Before Lock. So check that out, guys, because they're going to be covering the slate, also talking about their favorite MVP captain plays. I'm sure they'll be touching on the kickers and defenses as well. But Avi Schreier wants to know chicken bake or Hebrew national hot dog. This is the hottest question we have in the entire slate, Neil. What's your answer? Chicken bake or Hebrew national hot dog?
I have no idea what chicken bake is. That just like a chicken baked? Is that all that is? I'll go with a hot dog. I like hot dogs.
Yeah. So the chicken bake, it's a, what is, I gotta be honest, I don't know what chicken bake is. I'm Googling and trying to figure out.
Is it like a store? I'm in. I want that one.
All right. He says it's like a Hot Pocket. It's probably the worst promotion for food. It's like a Hot Pocket. All right. Well, either way, I'm going to go with Hebrew National Hot Dog, but more so, mini hot dogs. I don't know why. There's no other food that's better when you shrink it, but hot dogs. They're the optimal food to eat in a smaller form. So I'm going to go with the Hebrew National Hot Dogs. I don't know what chicken bake is. Maybe I'll try it at some point in time. Maybe I'll. Who's to say? Either way, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, stick around because Live Before Lock is next.
You know, Danny Ocean once told me, Andy, never bet against the house. And I said back to him, well, can I pick against the house at least? And he said, oh, absolutely. And then I'm like, what if there's no house advantage? He goes, oh, you definitely have to do it. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing tonight. I'm going to be picking against the house for this Thursday night football game between the Chargers and the Chiefs on no house advantage. No house advantage, it combines fantasy with player props, and it allows you to net up to 20 times your money in a contest like the one I'm going to take part in tonight. You know, if you deposit $25 by using the link that you'll see down below on this video, no house advantage is actually going to match that. So you put in 25 and they're going to give you 25, and then we're going to times that 25 by another 20, and we can start doing the math, or we can start giving the picks. So first up, I got Austin Eckler over 37.5 receiving yards. Now this all stems for me from Keenan Allen not playing. I believe those short and intermediate routes, many of them will go to Austin Eckler. And then when you look at their matchup last year on Thursday Night Football, I believe he caught 11 catches. And Eckler didn't have a great game week 1. Usually, I believe, when he has a down week, he follows it with quite an up week. I never like taking the rushing with him because we don't know exactly the workload he's going to get from a rushing standpoint. But when it comes to receiving in a game like this against the Chiefs, where they might be down, but even if they're not down, we've seen how they play call against the Chiefs. Very aggressive, a lot of throwing. Expect Austin Eckler to go over 37.5 receiving yards. Then I'm going to look at receiving on the other side of the ball, and I'm going to go with the two guys who led the Chiefs in targets last week. The first being Travis Kelsey. Now, there's no Tyreek Hill there, so their number one option in a Patrick Mahomes offense at home is Travis Kelsey. I personally, if I had to put a line out for Kelsey tonight, I'd put it around 84.5. The line they're giving up is 78.5. I'll take those free yards, and I love how my yardage estimation somehow means anything, even though I just came up with it.
Absolute rookie producer. Rookie producer, can't do anything right. Jordan Klein.
Go to Costco, man.
You know,
go to Costco.
I just feel like, oh, welcome everybody. Hi. Welcome to the NFL Live Before Lock show presented by No House Advantage. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be talking a game that I really want to watch. Amazon really wants us to watch it too, apparently. So there we go. Hit that like button for us, not Amazon. Subscribe button, notification bell. All of that goes a long way for us. Excited for this football game. How can you not be? Points galore. We have some places that you can take advantage of that, like No House Advantage, like BetMGM in the video description box below. I'd go sign up there too. But the guy who's going to give us the information that's going to help us make all the money, I have most of my lineups in, but I saved a couple Matt Savoca specials right there for myself because, you know, I like making money with my friends, and that's what we're going to do at Draftaholic on the Twitters. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing so well. The highest game total on the entire week 2 slate tonight. Very excited for it. Very excited for all the action we can get on all these amazing platforms and partnerships we have with Stokastic. It's a little overwhelming. Like, you come in the morning and you get these messages. You're like, oh my God, the free money available to Stokastic members. Keep your ears and eyes peeled for that. But we also have a great game to go over. Excited to dig in. And thank you, man. I appreciate that you leave a few lineups for after we've talked things through.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't have 100% MVS in the captain's spot.
I
can have like 90%. I can have like 90%, but it's going to be a really fun showdown. It's going to be all or nothing the way my lineups look. But we got some of the inactives. I guess we should probably maybe start with that. I mean, there wasn't anything that was super revelatory. Anything stand out to you from either side?
I think it was an active member, right? JC Jackson is playing.
Yes.
And the fact that he, you know, can change so much about this secondary, which already has playmakers all over the field, Derwin James. And then, of course, you got Khalil Mack, you got Bosa up front. This is a defense that can do damage. Now, are they going to completely stop Patrick Mahomes? Probably not, right? That's one way to play your lineups tonight and just say, like, the Chargers have enough firepower defensively to stop the Chiefs because you know people are going to fall left and right by playing them. I just don't think that's necessarily going to happen. That's still the biggest news for me. Keenan Allen's absence is not a surprise, but it certainly changes the way the Chargers are going to look offensively.
Couple things. There's always next week, Eric. I smashed week 1. I don't know about you. When you have 40% Patrick Mahomes, when you have 50% Travis Kelsey, and you have 50% MVS, guess what? The MVS part didn't matter. So, joke's on you. I wish it was McCole Hardman, but whatever. It would have been a slight bump and the $27 single entry. That would have been
doing
fun.
okay.
We're doing okay with our lives. Second thing, almost made. Draftaholic. You sound like Ryan Reynolds. I kind of hear it once I heard that.
All right.
That's
Write
a good thing. Would you like to have your fourth child with Blake Lively? I know I would.
My fiance in the other room would not like
Blink
the answer
twice
to this,
if you agree.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a pretty decent comparison. I'll take it for tonight.
That was such good, like tight-roping, I must say. As a fellow, I mean, I'm married, so I've gone all the way off the deep end. You're about to, but I will say I respect a good like plank walk. You walk right out to the edge. You said, "Nah, not today," and you walk back on the boat. That was a good decision. Good man. Good man.
I have two text messages. Guess who they're from? I think they're from the other room. I think she might be listening.
I might be her least favorite colleague.
We're having a great night here at the household, the Draftaholic household.
It's about to get better, baby, because you just shut down Blake Lively on a stream in front of 2,000 witnesses. So well done. All righty. Ronald Jones, I thought was kind of the one that obviously stuck out. He was inactive last week, inactive this week. That works out nicely because we have 3 running backs to comb through with the running back spot with Kansas City. But let's just dive into this, shall we? We go position by position on this show. I know the other guys did a great job of breaking everything down. Let's start 2 quarterbacks we kind of want to get to. And I think for me, it's still going to be a little bit more Patrick Mahomes. He's 11-8 as opposed to 11-2 over on DK. Has that top percentage that's about 7% higher. Yeah, the utility is going to show up a little bit more for Herbert. For me, I'm not going to be getting to him in the captain spot as much, which kind of freaks me out a little bit because it's only a 4% difference there. But how are you kind of handling the 2 quarterbacks that are just studs on this slate?
Yeah, look, sometimes we get into the how do you win a GPP talk so fast in these conversations that we forget to say that Patrick Mahomes has a 72% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Way more than a coin flip. Patrick Mahomes, in some form or fashion, is in the optimal lineup on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's even more. I'm more likely to get more contrarian the more I play Patrick Mahomes in the captain spot. But the bottom line is, I don't believe, I'll say this, most of my lineups are being played where I'm not believing that Patrick Mahomes gets shut down. I think his weaponry is healthy. I think they looked very good. I don't think every week is going to be as good as that Arizona game. But I don't think they're going to be completely shut down, even though the defense they're facing is high quality. Ultimately, Patrick Mahomes has a chance to pass for 5 touchdowns in a way that very few quarterbacks in the NFL do. I think the most likely thing is about 2 touchdowns, about 290 yards. But do you want that in your showdown lineup? Unless you're talking about trying to take down a large field GPP, almost always yes.
Yeah, he's pretty unavoidable, I think, today. I will say one of my favorite type of builds that I keep running into is a pass catcher up in the captain spot and then not their quarterback on the other side in the utility. Like for me, that's kind of been the lineup that I'm finding myself. If I'm just going to try to avoid duplication, just thinking about it outright, there's going to be so many people that correlate the quarterback in the utility. Now, if I play a quarterback and the captain, I'm going to play 2 pass catchers, pretty much no brainer
100%.
From the other side. So I think we're both on par or in agreement with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Especially with the way the game environment should be extremely pass heavy. We're playing those positive correlations up today.
Okay. But I do think that there's paths where I don't play the specific quarterback. If the Chiefs end up down 2 touchdowns or salary wise, if Mahomes ends up getting beaten out by Justin Herbert straight up, you better have Justin Herbert, but there's still paths where Herbert can work out. Mahomes doesn't. Just depends on how much salary I'm going to be leaving over. But I think that it's just such a fascinating quarterback slate because they're both pretty unavoidable. Now, if I'm playing one lineup, would you rather play Mahomes or Herbert in the flex?
If I'm playing one lineup, I get more leverage off the field probably by playing Herbert. So I might as well just play it. I don't feel great about it, but I probably just play Herbert. Again, this is a one lineup situation.
Right. I just wanted to give it out there for, one lineup people need love too. No discrimination here, squirrel. So get your hands off my cheeks. Let me study how you ride the beach. Big freak, skinny, slim.
Where have we gone?
Outcast. Speaker box. Love below. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that, my friends. Yeah, that does it for the quarterback position. You should have them if you make more than one lineup. Spoiler alert. Well done by us.
I mean, it's a quarterback on a showdown slate, and they're two good quarterbacks, and it's a high total game. It would be extremely contrarian to play a lineup that has a game script that wouldn't have one of the two quarterbacks hitting.
I mean, we just got 2K people here. Smash that like button as we get over to the running back position. This one really, really matters. And I will say, if you were playing MLB today, MLB player projections are free. That's kind of cool. We also have some Stokastic stuff that's really awesome. I will talk to you about that in a second, but let's do some running back discussion. And starting with the visiting team, the Chargers, Austin Eckler, I will say 32%. 32% is kind of where he's coming in right now. It feels a little bit low. I mean, obviously he's expensive as F over on FanDuel as well. 14.5 that you're going to be paying up to get to him. But I will say, if you don't have Keenan Allen there and you have an entire week to kind of adjust to life without him, I feel like he's going to be a more integral part of the passing game. I think I want to get more than 32% on DraftKings right now, a PPR site specifically, where I think he'll have a lot of passing game involvement and lots of paths to success. How do you feel about Austin Eckler today?
What are the chances, Eric, that they actually took it easy on Austin Eckler on Sunday because they knew the opponent they had on Thursday? I actually think, and this is really
that's not a terrible way of thinking about it.
This is really fascinating too, because there's a meta aspect to this, because Austin Eckler is a man of the people. He is literally on a fantasy football podcast,
sure is,
on another platform every single week. And he was talking about two things. One, how teams that don't utilize their starters in the preseason actually need quite a bit of time of regular season play to acclimate, because they literally just don't have their feet under them as an offense. And two, that we need to expect teams to start to slowly ease their superstar players into the season, because they need them in January and February. From a fantasy football perspective, that can sometimes be infuriating. 72 total yards is a huge underperformance for Austin Eckler. That's what it was at last week. But ultimately, I know he doesn't look good in the tools. I know he's expensive, but his ceiling potential is really different, especially on a slate where you don't have Keenan Allen. It's like him and Kelsey in terms of ceiling potential from the flex positions, and then everybody else.
Also, in terms of game flow, weren't they up 2 touchdowns until that last touchdown catch? And they didn't really need to put the gas down with Eckler.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't need to. But I will say also, they have a more functional running back, if you want to call him that. Joshua Kelly, Sony Michel, like those aren't terrible running backs. Everybody knows from last year. I might be more on the Sony Michel bandwagon than most other people. Somebody that I liked at Georgia, I liked him in New England, didn't think he got utilized correctly. Always thought he could pass some or catch some passes there. But they kind of just make sense as cheaper options to mix into some lineups. Would you be willing to play them alongside Eckler though?
Alongside Eckler, because Eckler could be utilized as the slot receiver possibly, I think you could do it, but I'm saving that for large field tournaments only. Honestly, I think the chances that Sony Michel or Kelly really hitting, I would think that's a situation like last week in Kansas City with Pacheco. They somehow get ahead, way ahead. It's 37-7 in the third quarter, which if you're trying to win $1 million, that is a game flow very few people are building their lineups for. I think it's a low probability. I don't think it's crazy.
I swear to God, you and I are in mid-season form. Last week, Thursday, fire show. This week, you lead me right into my major points. When I go to the Kansas City side, which is where we're going, because I don't know, we've exhausted the Charger side. CEH, Jerick McKinnon, Pacheco, those are going to be your 3 running backs back there. I will say for DraftKings, Jerick McKinnon makes some sense. He's got a pretty secure pass game role, but I'm with you where I think CEH probably, I can't guarantee it. Obviously, it's 1 week of football, but I'm pretty positive CEH would have saw more usage if they weren't up by infinity points in that second half. Allowed Pacheco to come in some low leverage spots. Was he successful? Yeah. And maybe he earned some type of time to be able to play with CEH. You can make that case on the other side, but I'm more inclined to think we give CEH the boost here. I'm kind of on the opposite side of what Greg was on the show before. It's super sharp guy. Absolutely love him. I like CEH today. Do you?
I'm absolutely fine with it. The thing that I take away the most from the Kansas City Chiefs offensive attack in week 1 is that running backs touch the ball 45% of the time. Whether it was a pass or a rush, they were finding ways to get Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and McKinnon. And I think I am the 900,000th fantasy analyst to talk about, well, Pacheco didn't touch the ball until it was, deep into the game. It was 37.
This is the first time I've heard that all week.
Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, what I think is most important is that Patrick Mahomes is willing to dump it off when they're trying to take away the deep pass because they know they can torch him deep. So if he's taking those check down options, I'm taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's getting the highest snap share and highest opportunity share in neutral game scripts. I think he's a really strong play today. I have one more favorite, and I think I'm just going to lean all the way into that particular player. But I think CEH has 25-point upside in a. If you played the slate 1,000 times, it'd be a very high percentage of 25-point games for CEH.
Let's use this as an opportunity to jump over to No House Advantage. They have a Thursday night showdown right now, 10K to first. It is 54.5 rushing yards is the prop for CEH. And I find that to be a pretty intriguing number. It really comes down to how much faith you have in what you saw with Pacheco in that second half. Did he earn some playing time, or was it a result of it being a complete blowout? Now, CEH has had some fumble stuff where it popped up and then all of a sudden, Jerick McKinnon is your major usage guy in the playoffs coming down the stretch last season. Actually rushed a lot more than you would think in those playoff games. Like we saw him kind of take over that backfield, but 54.5 for tonight's Thursday night football showdown, 10K to first. Do you like over or under 54.5 rushing yards?
What's really funny is from a DFS perspective, sorry to hedge a little bit here, I think he's great because you're not taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. I think he has more pass catching upside, but in pure rushing, I don't think there's a ton of value there. In fact, I almost am inclined to take the under as a low confidence play on No House Advantage. As I'm weaving the narrative here and talking about trying to win a GPP, it's a little bit different. I do think that he could have a great game and still be under 60 rushing yards. And I know that's right there. But again, this is just something we know. If we got him projected for about 57 or 58 and it's, the line is 54, 55. I think that's exactly where we have him right now. There's very little value there. So we can only kind of put that as a low confidence over bet.
Can we retire CEH already? You know how much more money I would have in my life if CEH didn't exist? I think I would be a lot happier person the last 2 seasons because I've never been able to pick him out of a hat ever. Mainly because he's just been bad overall and I've expected better things from him. But we shall see tonight. I'm with you. People are saying absolutely wild take to get to 25 fantasy points today. Didn't he have 22.4 last week? Like, I don't think it's that crazy of a take. Yeah, and it was receiving game volume. So, like, as you said, that's going to be something to be paying close attention to. But
if it's a neutral game script and it's the same kind of touches that Pacheco got in the second half, then we're talking about a massive opportunity share, whether it's on the ground or through the air. You don't have to be right about that if you're playing DFS. If you're playing No House Advantage or betting props, you do.
Only 602 out of 1,600 entries in the $15. Head to No House Advantage. Go right now. I'll talk about them a little bit later, but I want you to get a head start with our friends over there. NoHouseAdvantage.com. Sign up. Use promo code Stokastic. Get $25 first match deposit bonus. All of that sounds great to me. So go get in that $15. Literally over 1,000 entries missing out of a 1,600 entry tournament. That's called overlay, and that's called how you make money. Kind of rounding out Pacheco and McKinnon. Which one are you getting more of tonight? Because, I mean, it seems like the entire field's going McKinnon compared to Pacheco.
Yeah, and that's why I would go Pacheco, not because I feel great about it, but because it's possible. I'll go away from the field here. And, I honestly think that when I say a high percentage of times, I'm talking about if you played the slate 1,000 times, a high percentage is like 5 to 7% of those 1,000 games. I'm not talking about 50 to 60. So to clarify that, I want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing with CEH.
I knew what you meant. I think other people might not have. I saw Caleb in the chat brought that up. But yeah, no, I knew what you meant.
A relative high percentage.
Correct.
Yes.
There you go.
Pacheco is still my favorite, honestly, because he has outplayed his draft capital at every step of the way, including scoring in his first NFL game. That might just be a good NFL player. We don't know yet, but if he's not popular yet, that's a great way to be different in tournaments.
Popular. You want to be popular.
Gershwin Theater, not far away.
Come on, baby. See, this is the second musical theater joke we've had. Jordan Klein, thank you so much to our producer down there. He loves Wicked. You love Wicked. We all love Wicked. Don't lie to me.
It is like a meme right now. Producer Jordan is like,
I don't care. You think I care?
Oh, I know you don't care.
Do you think I care? I do not care. Well, all I care about is that you guys check out Stokastic tools and content here with the Platinum Pass. Right now, 3 days of NFL content, 3 days, 100% free. Signing up right now. That is what you want to be checking out, is that 3-day free trial. Would you like to see all of the NFL DFS stuff that we have to offer with the Top Stacks tool, the ownership projections, the player projections, Top Stacks tool, which obviously the Top Showdown tool here is phenomenal for the top single game plays. We can talk leverage. We can talk the over-owned plays. We can talk the under-owned plays. We can talk the not-owned plays. We can talk all sorts of plays with the help of the tools here at Stokastic. It's awesome. Activate your 3-day free trial right now. Fantasy Cruncher will not be included in that, and I want to talk really fast because that's what they do in these kind of ads when it comes to this point, but you guys know what I mean. Check out the 3-day free trial right now. Stop guessing, start winning, and join us with Stokastic Platinum today.
Not joining would be morable.
Oh, I like you so much. 2, the wide receiver position. We skedaddle looking at the top end of the wide receiver crew from the Chargers. There's one Mike Williams, and he is just sitting there. He was awful last week, but guess what? He's awful a lot of weeks, and then he'll get something like, I don't know, 17 targets that we saw in week 18 against a Raiders team that I would say defensively pretty stylistic to this. This is going to be high scoring. There aren't a lot of people that can match up with Mike Williams, I think, in this secondary. Feels like a necessary evil on this slate because, yeah, he feels boom busty, but on a single game slate, I'm not willing to be underneath 32%. How do you plan to utilize Mike Williams on DraftKings and FanDuel tonight?
I'm kind of barbelling it, right? I'm kind of playing lineups with the narrative that either he completely busts or he goes completely off. I don't think that Mike Williams is the type of player I need to bet on when he's scoring 10 fantasy points. So I don't need to build lineups that factor that in as a scenario because he's not really a value per se. He's kind of expected to do a certain amount of damage today that we don't actually know he can do. I do know that Kansas City is a defense and schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed last year. That's the fantasy points allowed above or below opponent's average. They were 17th, so they were slightly below average. They were slightly below average defense. They're almost in the they don't really matter category. So it really comes down to how do they choose to individually match up with Mike Williams today? Is it possible they kind of shadow him? Yes, but I don't think that's the case. Personally, I just don't think that you have to play him unless you're specifically fading him or specifically going for his ceiling games.
Yeah, L'Jarius Sneed, I don't think he'll be in shadow coverage with him there. That would be kind of a strange phenomenon. I think he'll be lining up with some of the smaller wide receivers. I think they pretty much have to use Fenton, 5'11". Well, I know L'Jarius Sneed's a little bit taller, I think, from what I remember, but I feel pretty confident that Mike Williams, as bad as what he was last week, that's the absolute floor for him. And
that's
with
true.
No Keenan Allen, it's just really hard for me to imagine a scenario where you don't basically say, hey, go and win us a football game here, Mike. And you just kind of air it out there. I know that, what did he have? Nine different pass catchers last week for Justin Herbert. I mean, come on, the guy's absolutely unbelievable. So, but Mike Williams is just a gigantic human who can catch footballs at an apex that no other person in a Charger uniform can. So I'm going to be going his direction in a number of lineups. I will say I'm not getting to him nearly as much in a captain scenario as what I was expecting. I think on FanDuel, it does make sense that he would be the Jerry Jeudy, if you will, based off of Monday night, where just because of touchdowns mattering so much on FanDuel and a half-point PPR, would you say that out of any skill position player, Mike Williams would maybe be your favorite contrarian option? He's mine, I think.
Favorite contrarian
other
option.
than MVS, but I'm a sick person and I don't suggest doing that.
I don't actually think he's my favorite.
Okay.
I don't think
I just said
think
contrarian, meaning like not Kelsey, not Eckler.
I guess once you're getting there, once you're getting that tier 2 player, I think there's a level of confidence there, but I actually don't think there's a huge value versus salary-based expectation here. I think actually on DraftKings, where his salary is kind of annoyingly high, which will get people off him, you might have more leverage there. especially as a non-captain play. Not saying it's a bad idea, especially when you know that there's like a 15 target ceiling there, like there is for basically no other player on the slate except Kelsey. I just don't see the super value on FanDuel, even though touchdowns absolutely do matter more. That's true.
Josh Gillum. Mike Williams isn't contrarian at all. FU, yes, he is. He's only 6.4% on FanDuel in the captain. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth player listed. He's behind CEH, and then you have the obvious people. But I'm just saying, he's a contrarian FanDuel option in the MVP, which is what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. Thanks for listening. Hit that like button. That goes a long way for us. Appreciate you. Plus, you're here all the time, so I felt like ribbing you. Let's continue on with the rest of these wide receivers. Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, they step into a much larger role. And I will say, DeAndre Carter looked pretty good to me. And I feel like we are going to see some of that ownership go Josh Palmer's way, just because he had more recognition from last season. Do we think DeAndre Carter is for real based off of what we saw? Because he was wide open a number of times in that second half. And I was like, who is that guy?
So DeAndre Carter is 5'8", 185. What you need to do in order to be successful at that limited size is have great burst and agility. Undrafted in 2015, he has 84th percentile burst according to playerprofiler.com and close to the 100th percentile agility score. So we're talking about how they measure three cone, his lateral movement. That is the type of route tree that Keenan Allen typically wins on. So if he's utilized effectively in the slot, I actually think that we might see DeAndre Carter take over more routes that Keenan Allen typically runs than people think. Now, does he get targeted on those? Does he get the same Keenan Allen level separation? I think that's tougher to find out, but I actually think he's a sneaky good play tonight.
All righty. I'm here for it. I mean, that would be great because the rest of the options don't look good. His name is Jalen Guyton. I remember him from last year. He's 1,200. God forbid he ends up on the field today because I don't have him. Is Jalen Guyton somebody in the largest fields of the largest tournaments that you might consider?
Yes. In the largest fields of the largest tournaments, yes, I would. But I'm kind of with you. He's definitely a little bit more of a saving him for the large field tournaments play. I'm not someone I'm targeting. My favorite value play still we have not mentioned.
Oh, well, maybe we can find him with the Chiefs. As we jump over here to the wide receiver position. And this is where I think we're going to be spending some time because I got some takes, fam. It's going to get really, really weird in the next couple of minutes. But our projections, I'm very, very impressed by, I must say, because you go around the rest of the industry and it's Juju Smith-Schuster this. It's Juju Smith-Schuster that. It's, did you see the most targeted wide receiver last week? He had 8 targets. He had 6 catches for 79. If he had scored a touchdown, Juju Smith-Schuster would be 10K. He would be so popular. You know what? I don't care. I am playing way more MVS because he ran the most routes. He was on the field the most out of any wide receiver. 33 routes run, 51 total snaps, most of any skill position player on the Chiefs, yes, including Travis Kelsey. How are you feeling about the Juju Smith-Schuster versus MVS debate, and why are you picking MVS with me?
I hate to be the MVS apologist, the Juju apologist here, but I kind of am. Do I think that when we're talking about a one-game slate and we're trying to be different and we're trying to use game theory and understand where the field is going, MVS is a fantastic play tonight. But if you are really talking about who might end up being that sneaky great wide receiver where you drafted him in best ball and have a target share in the 15% to 20% range week to week, I still think Juju might be that guy. The route tree and the fact where he plays in this offense leads him to possibly be a target monster. Is it going to happen? Again, I feel like I'm hedging all the time tonight. We don't know. It's week 2. But I do think that if you're talking about changing the game in one play, changing their fantasy game in one play, MVS has huge spike potential. And so as a DFS guru, I can see why you're drawn to the route tree he runs specifically, especially against a Chargers defense who you have to assume they're trying to take away the middle of the field. But if MVS sneaks away for one pass, he could change the whole slate with just literally one play.
Yep. I have 30 million reasons I like him. He got 30 million in the offseason, 3 years, 30 million. I believe he's the highest. Oh, he is the highest paid wide receiver by a ways on the Chiefs offense. Just throwing it out there. 6'4", sub 440. How many times must I say these things? Just wait. MVS wasn't going deep, though. Yeah, but he's running a ton of routes. And guess what? He has deep playability. The way that teams have been playing Mr. Patrick Mahomes has been with 2 deep safeties. I can guarantee you, Derwin James is coming to the line of scrimmage to try to create some plays. Like, this isn't your typical 2 safeties deep kind of guy. Derwin James is going to be schematically coming in, rushing, doing some different things. Patrick Mahomes is incredible on the blitz. When people blitz him, he just torches them. So I am looking at MVS as like the clear-cut number 1 highest owned captain for me this week. Yes, I'm a sick person. Yes, JC Jackson is back, and that's
who I think he's going to see a lot of. I don't know this. I think he's going to see a lot of JC Jackson. Yeah.
I don't know who else is going to match up with him on the Charger side. I mean, they're going to have to do some press type stuff to make it work. They're going to have Reed come around, or not Reed. That's on the Charger side, but you know what I mean. Derwin James is going to be coming strong safety, coming into the line of scrimmage a little bit more. I feel pretty good though about this take. I think it's going to work out one time this year.
I want to add one more thing, Eric, because look at the sentiment on chat. Just go to the chat right now and scroll through how people are feeling about Eric's take.
MVS is no good. MVS sucks.
This is why we're going for it, because of the one play upside and the fact that the field doesn't want to go there. Maybe he is bad. Honestly, the thing that rattles in the back of my head with MVS is, why do you keep underperforming your athletic potential? Because his athletic potential is insane.
It's a very nuanced thought that was really well put together. Like, is that what you would go up to him and say? You would be like, why do you not live up to your foremost athletic potential, sir?
I genuinely would never, ever do that to a human being unless someone was like in an analytics department paying me to come up with those things. No way would I say that, but that's what I see when I look at a 95th percentile 40-yard dash, a 98th percentile speed score, a 74th percentile agility score, late 5th round pick. Guy was a freak of nature, should have absolutely dominated USF, was okay, didn't break out till his junior season, and had trouble sticking with Aaron Rodgers. I think people can weave the opposite narrative, but if you're talking about trying to win a slate, trying to take down a chunk of money, this is a great play to bet on.
I knew we were going to spend forever here. Mecole Hardman there at 5,600. That's the guy that obviously, if you just switched the two and you gave me those 2-3 extra points, that makes a huge difference last week to my bankroll. It was still very profitable and I'm very happy. But MVS, please come along for the ride here today. But how do you feel about Hardman, Sky Moore? I guess Justin Watson is active, so that's cool. He's a person who exists, who's wearing a Chiefs uniform. Lots of potential opportunities here.
Exactly. The larger the field that I'm playing in, the more likely I will consider Justin Watson, but we're only considering him because it's a 1-game slate, not because we think anything real is going to happen there. Sky Moore is the player who you could easily say, like, oh, there was the game. He got 7 targets. 2nd round pick, high draft capital. If you want to say this is the night, I'm riding that wave, I want to be on that train before it takes off, I totally get why you're going there, especially with the low salary. You know, both on FanDuel and DraftKings, Sky Moore's salary is really reasonable. But Mecole Hardman, in terms of probability of hitting compared to salary-based expectations, he's really up there with everyone. I mean, MVS and him in our last run of the DraftKings leverage score, if you're just talking about separating out captain and flex play, MVS and Hardman are tied exactly at leverage score.
Anything else from the wide receiver position that you would like to discuss?
I would just like to say this is where you get different with the secondary Chiefs receiving options. I don't necessarily feel the same way about secondary receiving options in LA because we just don't know enough about that team. These are players that are going to be involved in MVS and Hardman, and their 2 touchdown potential is quite high in this spot.
It's like Ben Stiller in Dodgeball. Let's get naughty. Let's get freaking naughty.
I got the shackles of the car.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood on the floor. Cool. Hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. As I talk about BetMGM, y'all, this is where you want to be. Sign up right now in the video description box below. If you head down there, there's a link right now. If you have legal betting in your state, simply bet $10 on either money line on either side. And if there is a touchdown scored in this game, spoiler alert, there's going to be a touchdown scored in this game. I don't believe Iowa Hawkeyes are playing on Thursday Night Football. So that's exciting for you guys. So I can guarantee you there will be a touchdown scored. You'll get $200. That's 8 free $25 bets paid out to you instantly on BetMGM when there is a touchdown scored. It doesn't matter if you pick the right team. It doesn't matter what your name is. You can click on either name on the money line and you're going to get that offer tonight. So bet $10. If either team scores a touchdown, win $200. Doesn't get a whole lot better or simpler than that. Oh, and hey, we got No House Advantage, and I want to revisit them as well because we are still looking at massive overlay at nohouseadvantage.com. Simply put that in, use promo code Stokastic. You will get $25 when you deposit $25 or more. That gives you 2 bullets at least to get in that $15, where there's only 764 out of 1,600 entries, less than half full right now. And the $5, only 195 out of 480. Way less than half full over that $5 1K to first. So if you're looking for the best bang for your buck tonight, there is no doubt it is over at No House Advantage. We have projections over at Odd Shopper just by signing up with your email that you can take advantage of. Help select you a couple of these props. Take a look at, if you're on Stokastic, you can go to the top page. We have the NFL premium data, and you go to projections and projected stats. You can use those to help you inform the best decisions on the board. We talked about a little bit earlier whether we had interest in CEH. Lots of spots where you can pick more or less for their receiving props for a number of different players. You can only pick one per player, and do not click on Keenan Allen because you will get a 0 for that. So please do not do that. Somebody's going to do that and they're not going to be happy. So do not play them, but get yourself some exposure to No House Advantage right now. I'm signing up for a tournament. Come join me there. I'm going to go jump in that $20. It's going to be a $15 right now. Then the $5, I'm going to get in that. So I'm going to have $20 in play. Super easy. All I did was just simply put together my favorite props for the day, and I'm going to win myself some money. 10K to first exactly would be the number I'm looking for. So check out No House Advantage. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring so much great content here at Stokastic on the Daily. All right, tight end position kind of feels important because I don't know if you know this, Matt Savoca, but tight ends destroy Showdown. I don't know why. I don't know how, but it keeps happening. And it seems as though we should maybe talk about the most important one first. This Travis Kelsey guy, he seems good at football.
Pretty good, I would say. And fading Travis Kelsey in any way is a scary thought. And I know he's got a negative leverage score if you're looking at our boom bust tool tonight, but that still doesn't take away the fact that he's an optimal play nearly 50% of the time. Like Geno Smith on Monday night level optimal percentage, even on DraftKings where his salary is quite high. I think Travis Kelsey is one of the best players in football right now and a surefire Hall of Famer with a Hall of Fame quarterback as well. Do you really want to fade that often? Now, when we add in the game theory element, which is in any one player in any one game environment could absolutely fail here, especially with a great player like Derwin James available as a safety over the middle with a solid cornerback in J.C. Jackson we've been talking about. But no one really completely shuts down Travis Kelsey. That's a very low probability outcome. And no matter what the tools say, I'm still probably going to get at or near the field when I'm talking about multi-lineup entry.
Yeah, every time I look at these matchups, I mean, what do? Murray, Tranquil in the middle of the field, linebacker, Jackson.
What does any team
Callahan,
do?
What do you do? I mean, Derwin James is going to have to do a lot of work on Kelsey is kind of the main thing that I'm seeing. Best of luck.
And I think if you haven't been playing fantasy football or DFS for a really long time, these Hall of Fame caliber tight ends, with the exception of Gronk, and let's knock on some wood here because no one wants to see players get hurt, but these Hall of Fame level tight ends can play exceptionally well into their mid-30s. So the drop-off isn't quite the same. The drop-off trajectory isn't quite the same. Say those 32, 33, 34-year-old receivers. Everyone remembers like Andre Johnson a couple of years ago where it just like completely fell off a cliff. It's typically different for these tight ends at the very top tier.
Okay. Well, there's no Blake Bell, which is sad to me. I feel like 0.4% Blake Bell was a thing in Showdown last year. It was lovely. Noah Gray, once upon a time, he is active for today along with Jody Fortson. I mean, what do you say? Like they're very low probability plays. I believe salary-based expectations would be the word. There aren't many. No. Yes. No.
I enjoyed it. I was.
Thank you. I was trying.
I loved
drink.
it.
Everybody drink. Here we go.
Water's nice.
Water's good. It's refreshing. Water sucks. It really, really sucks. Water boy. It's fine. Gatorade.
That took me a minute.
Gatorade. So beautiful.
Boucher.
Mama said alligators ornery because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush.
No.
We've gone down the deep dive. Let's go to the Charger side here because it is what it is. Gerald Everett.
Well, it's not Jody Fortson season. I mean, we just have to mention his name because it's a showdown.
Stop it. We're going to Gerald Everett because he's kind of an important talking point. He's 4,800, and I will say he's a guy that showed up a lot for me, and I had to do a lot of things to not get infinity percent of him. But this isn't this isn't a main slate. We don't have to play tight ends, but he's a really good value at 4,800 for DraftKings purposes. On FanDuel, the touchdown potential is definitely there. I feel like he's definitely a viable piece over there as well. How much of Gerald Everett do you find yourself getting?
A lot. This is the play I've been kind of hinting at all night. This is that value play I'm going for because I was shocked to see in total optimal percentage, which is whether they end up in the lineup as a flex play or a captain on DraftKings. Gerald Everett, again, this is comparing him to his much lower salary, ends up in the optimal lineup just 9% less than Travis Kelsey. Do I think he's 9% less of Travis Kelsey as a player? Probably not. But we're talking about a hyper athletic tight end used on essentially every down for a team that is expected to score a ton of points and possibly be in comeback mode. Now, I know it was only 4 targets, but he ran 23 routes, 54 receiving yards on 30 air yards, and ended up being the 4th highest scoring tight end in all of fantasy football last week. The fact that they wanted to utilize him before Keenan Allen went down is important to me as well. I know Trey Mckitty will be there for you large field GPP players. He's fine. But Gerald Everett, I think, is a fantastic value play, especially on DraftKings.
Look at that. MVS and Gerald Everett. That's what you guys are coming here for. Jam them. We're totally screwed.
That's how we get weird tonight. We get weird together.
Don't worry, hot mama. Things won't get weird. Got weird, didn't it? Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Austin Powers too. So
Herbert, no.
That was pretty good. I'm here for that. I like that impression.
Said that today.
But no, Scott. Cool. Let's go to the kickers and defense. We'll take a couple questions here on the other side of this, but most importantly, 12 minutes. Get your lineups in. I don't want to hear anybody, I didn't get my lineups in, or they didn't answer my question. Actually, speaking of that, I should get to this super chat that we had. It was for Mefrin. I know that was the name. Let me find it. Gabriel Mefrin. There we go. $1.99, make you holler. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Who is this slate's Disley? Sounds like it's Gerald Everett.
It's Gerald Everett, and then we roll our eyes when it's Trey Mckitty or Jody Fortson. We roll our eyes real hard all together.
So painful.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Mckitty, I have a little bit of.
Yep, I have a little bit of him too. I'm sure there will be someone getting even weirder with Trey Mckitty. I know Neil was talking him up in the earlier hour. He's the exact type of tight end, a Neil Orfield special kind of tight end. How can you project a touchdown for a player like that? You can't. But it's we're trying to win $1 million and have a unique lineup.
$100 billion. Cool. Let's talk some kickers and defense. This Matt Amendola character has been brought from the abyss into active duty here in absence of Harrison Butker, who, I don't know. We've had a lot of weird kicker injuries on showdowns here of late. It feels like it's been a thing over the course of the last year or so. But Matt Amendola, Dustin Hopkins, how much do you find yourself getting to Alex Baker's favorite position in football?
Got to play the kickers. And I guess getting weird with kicker in the captain in projected high total game is something that the players who are smarter than me have started to experiment with in showdown play. Because think about it. Everyone's betting on this shootout right now. We're all building lineups based on which wide receiver is going to go off, get that 50-yard touchdown, or fall into the end zone twice. And what if everybody fails? But the teams are still going back and forth. They still have Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. Who's mopping that up? It's Hopkins and Amendola. And I just got to say, let Justin Reed cook. He looked great in those emergency kicks. That backup safety, the rookie safety, looked great. Now, I get it. You got to have a kicker. And Matt Amendola, just because he's a kicker on the Chiefs at $6K on DraftKings, is just fine. But Hopkins is the one that probably looks the best in our tools right now. As a captain, actually, his leverage score is 1.4%, meaning his optimal percentage is pretty decent amount higher than his current expected ownership.
Hey, Adam H., whenever you want, I'll play you for $1 million on a golf course. Sound good? Sounds great. Cool. We will do that sometime. And then the defensive side of the ball, because again, what I think is happening more, Matt Savoca, is that we're seeing defense in a game like this where you're going to be really, really low owned. But even in a high scoring game, I always go back to that showdown of Chiefs Rams forever ago when it was like more than 45 points for both teams.
Yes.
And you had 2 defensive touchdowns from the Rams. They ended up with an optimal defense and it broke the slate. You got to find some paths to defense when they're not 40% owned like the Broncos were on Sunday night. What in God's green earth was going on with that? But right now, right around 10% owned. I don't know if they end up that popular here. I feel like everybody expects points. Is that a time when you find yourself getting some more defense as a result?
Yes, for sure. When people aren't thinking about defense at all is when I'll consider defense. Don't play defenses when they're that popular. Come on, guys. You know better than that. If you're talking like a cash situation or a head-to-head, maybe. But in this case, the Chiefs defense still comes out best in our tools. I think they're interesting because nobody wants to play them. I think we're going to see probably 6 to 8% ownership on these players. And as you said, it can still be a high scoring shootout style affair and still have defensive scoring. If you're using Fantasy Cruncher, make sure to pump the randomness especially high for the defensive position. It's possible. Is it projectable? No, it's going to be difficult, but I mean, this is Chargers are better on paper as a defense.
Chargers are a lot better. And I will say, this is kind of what I'm looking at. I do like over interception. I like the bet for both quarterbacks here in this spot. On the Charger side, it's very obvious to me. You get Joey Bosa on one edge and Khalil Mack on the other. That's what you call really good. That's a really good thing to have. And in the middle of that Chiefs defense, you get Chris Jones. Oh my God, was he a one-man wrecking crew against Arizona? So I feel pretty confident in saying I do see some pass rushing getting there tonight. So you get a couple of picks, a couple of weird bounces. There's a reason that they're juiced up pretty high at books around the industry tonight.
And again, it doesn't prohibit Herbert or Mahomes from having strong games, but we're talking about prop betting, no house advantage, over under an interception. That's where you can really take advantage of it. I do think the pressure up the gut for the Chiefs could be a way to really help them today. Herbert under pressure has been really strong, especially when you age adjust his metrics, it's ridiculous. But I think that's still the key to success because their secondary isn't that great.
All right. Well, now we have people being nice to us in chat. It's been a really back and forth little affair. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it too. If you enjoyed this program tonight, hit that like button. It's the nicest thing you can do for myself, for Matt Savoca, for Jordan Klein, the producer of this here fine program. We have 6 minutes until we all hell. That was a Freudian slip. Till we end up in hell here on Amazon. Whatever. The Amazon overlords taking
from Amazon hell. Get it delivered.
Yeah, no, they're gonna smite me with a drone after this show. Love Amazon. It's the absolute best. I think it's the next Costco, but of internet. I mean, it's the biggest company in the world. So I don't really need to sell them. They're fine.
They're doing okay. Well, I hope they're doing okay.
All right, get your questions in here.
It says producer Jordan.
Yeah, you got to come pay for that great information. But yeah, hit that Amazon hell. I don't even know what to say. It just happened. It slipped. It was my salary-based expectations, which are now going down as Amazon just
Jamie Moore, my new favorite person in chat. Love to see Matt. Eric is also a person on here.
Thanks, guys. I hope I win $1 million too. And then we can all shove it and it'll be lovely. Adam H. Caleb wants to get in on this. It'll be great till we all mute Kirk Herbstreit. Why is Kirk Herbstreit the one on this show tonight? I don't get it.
Wild.
I have to work. I'm going to be doing an MLB show until 9 p.m. out here on the West Coast. Hi, Jordan. You're my favorite.
You guys are going to be leaning and locking after this?
Lean with it. Lock with it.
I know we're a football show. Want to stay on topic, especially we got questions coming in. But
okay, fine.
That MLB,
we got questions.
That MLB video is
guys. I have no Herbert captain in 150 lineups. Thoughts? That's a problem.
That's a choice.
That's a
no
choice.
Herbert captain. So you have Herbert. You're just not playing him in captain. I think that's acceptable.
The second most likely captain optimal guy, you're going to just sit out in 150. I don't think you should do that.
That's probably, you probably shouldn't have 0 if you're doing 150.
This slate,
but if you have a high percentage of him, like let's say he's got like 70% Herbert, but it's all in the flex. I don't think that's crazy.
F Steele. I don't know what's going on with that. Are we talking golf? Are we talking baseball? Are we talking something? I have no idea. Sky Moore or Jerick McKinnon for Andrew Martinez? Jerick McKinnon for sure.
Yep. Jerick McKinnon more likely to hit. Sky Moore, the more likely to outpace salary-based expectations, in my opinion.
Sky Moore or Fortson, also drink.
Also Sky Moore.
It's good stuff. We continue on. Anything else here? I don't hear clicking, Eric. I already have my lineups in. Can't wait till Sony Michel breaks the slate. I hope he does. I'm way overweight to him. Can you touch on DK Cash a little bit, please? Eric and Matt, what a great thing to do. 3 minutes before a slate start. So your cash build, did you play cash? I did not tonight.
I did not play cash, but I can tell you the general rules, especially on a high scoring slate. Get as many quarterbacks and starting running backs as you can get in there. And when you can't get those players because they're too expensive, go to surefire flex plays like Travis Kelsey. And then once you can't get to that level, consider the kickers. That is my general flow chart for a cash game build in Showdown. It obviously is more nuanced than that. And if you're playing DK, go for more pass catchers. Like you're going to lean an Eckler slightly over a CEH, but that's what salary is telling you to do anyway. Starting running backs, always valuable though.
Always valuable. I'm pulling up my optimal as it goes right now. It's actually a Justin Herbert captain, which is ironic because we just had the person come in. Oh, that's so ironic. MVS shows up in my optimal. Why wouldn't he? It would be really weird if I was doing this entire show and then MVS didn't show up in my optimal. That would be a very strange.
Well, you have the special fantasy cruncher where when you load in and the Chiefs are playing, it's just got 4 likes automatically attached to MVS. I know how it works.
Yeah. Jack Nicholson meme. Thanks for watching, everyone. Loco has the idea. El Negro Loco, the news god himself, keeping you guys apprised in the premium Discord. Thank you so much to everybody. NHL HDR, get the F out of here. What is this madness? Please leave my screen. Absolutely love this. Oh, Douglas Robinson, any love for an LAC fullback? No.
Oh my gosh.
Xander Horvath, right?
Xander Horvath.
Isn't that his name?
He sounds like a Norse demigod or something.
Yeah.
Xander Horvath. He could have a touch, guys. He could. He plays football on the Chargers. He's a really, really low probability play. I'd rather play like Jalen Guyton or I'd probably rather play Justin Watson than him.
Final score tonight, Matt Savoca. Who wins?
Oh, okay. We're going to go 28-24 Chiefs.
28-24? That sounds like identical to me. I will literally steal that from you. 28-24 Chiefs. Cool. I just stole it from you because I steal all my advice from you, as I should. Why don't you tell the people as we get out of here where they can find your content day in, day out here at Stokastic?
Yeah, I'm happy to be over at the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel every single day of the week. You can follow us, the little cousin of this channel, over on the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel and the Stokastic Fantasy Football page as well. The Best Ball channel has taken a reprieve. It's over to Notorious Fantasy by Stokastic over this fall. So me and him are appearing on a ton of stuff over there. And of course, we're doing a bunch of stuff on the DFS channel, the Marathon Matchups show. More live before locks, more stuff on Odd Shopper. I'm all over the place. And follow me at Draftaholic on Twitter.
Go do that. Go follow me at Eric Lindquist. Go follow Jordan Klein at Jordan D. Klein. I think Jordan Incline sounds better, but that's just me. Let's get out of here, y'all. It's Matt Savoca. It's Eric Lindquist. We'll be here on Thursday nights for you. Looking forward to it all season long. Until next time, goodbye.